Hello and welcome to our webinar, Talent Anywhere, Delivering International Payroll with Confidence. Today we're going to look into how we can firstly get access to more low-cost payment rails around the globe. Secondly, reduce payroll setup time and ultimately limit administration costs. And then lastly, ultimately find ways to support your clients' ability to hire and retain talent as they expand their operations globally. So I am delighted to be joined by an expert panel today. I'm by no means an expert, but my name is David Hughes. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer here at TransferMate. I'm joined by Michelle Gaffney, who is the HR Business Partner at CloonTech. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dave. My name is Michelle Gaffney and I'm the HR business partner for CloonTech. CloonTech is a global suite of companies who provide cutting edge solutions to simplify global business. And aside from day-to-day HR, I also aim to link HR strategy for 8 sub-brands for 1,550 employees over 20 different locations. So delighted to be joining the panel today.
Great, Michelle. We're delighted to have you. And Matt, we're also joined by Matt Toimer, the Payments Director for Amidas. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dave. Lovely to be here, joining you from Austin, Texas. As you mentioned, I'm the Payments Director at Amidas, and really here today, I'm here to talk about how our customers, the challenges they're facing in the market, and how TransferMate has helped us solve for them.
Very good, Matt. Delighted to have you. So really looking forward to having a good, interesting discussion today about the, traditional and some new challenges we're seeing in the global payroll space. Before we kick into that, I just want to spend a minute or so talking about TransferMate. Hopefully, most of you on the WebEx are aware of us, but let me give the quick overview. So TransferMate is a B2B global technology provider. We specialize in cross-border payables and receivables, a fintech in name, but we've been around since 2010. And we have, one of our core competencies is our global reach. We have the ability to process and receive payments in over 170 countries around the globe, encompassing over 125 currencies. As you can see from the slide there, we partner with global companies and global brands across the world in numerous industry verticals and segments, banks, education, fintech. Obviously, today, we're here to talk about payroll. In addition to partnering with Amidas, we partner with many others in the payroll space. It's obviously a segment that is extremely becoming extremely interesting at the moment, given what's gone on with COVID and how we've all had to adapt in terms of working and hiring talent, etc. So to get a kind of a better perspective on that, I'm now going to pass it over to Michelle, and she's going to talk us through what she's seen from her perspective.
So I'm just going to take a few minutes today to go through some of the current trends that we're seeing that might impact the future of work off the back of the pandemic, as Dave mentioned. So when we look at the future of work, we can be fairly confident that the landscape will never return to what it was pre-pandemic. And I'm sure, as Dave mentioned, we've all heard the buzz terms, the Great Resignation, the Great Migration, the War for Talent, and those headlines have gained lots of traction. And there's interesting data on both sides of the argument, but regardless, one thing that we do know is the landscape has changed, and we need to be prepared by having greater scope, agility, and speed when it comes to delivering international payroll. So the questions we're asking ourselves are, will anything really change, and what does the evidence say? So let's have a look at the Great Migration. And according to a labour statistics report, the number of resignations in the US hit record highs in November 2021, with 4.5 million people resigning their roles. And as we're all aware, we've all heard, this steadily grew month on month, demonstrating that the so-called Great Resignation just isn't showing any signs of slowing down just yet. But one point to note is that it isn't affecting all sectors equally. And if we take the accommodation and food services sector, 6.9% of those workers resigned in November, while only 1.7% of workers in the finance sector resigned in the same period. So moving on to some of the theories and the facts really behind this, and comparing 2019 pre-pandemic to 2021. The first theory we have is that we're seeing record-breaking numbers in terms of resignations, and that is true. But there are lots of plausible theories as to why those spikes might be occurring, and it could be due to pent-up resignations from pre-pandemic, to the fact that quit rates generally rise as the economy recovers and people look for better options, or the potential high percentage of resignations from those retiring just a little bit earlier than we expected. And theory number two, there are record numbers of people thinking about resigning. And a PwC survey here showed 65% of people were thinking about leaving their jobs in August 2021. In comparison, Forbes cited a 2019 study that puts that figure at 64%, which is just 1% of a variance. And the last theory then, people want more flexible work, more flexible working, remote working. And a ZipRecruiter survey of more than 2,500 job seekers suggests that the pandemic created a stark mismatch between the type of jobs that people are looking for and those that are actually available. And 60% of respondents said they prefer to find a job where they can work from home. Recently, I looked at Indeed and Irish Jobs, and the percentage of remote roles advertised is 9% and 7% respectively. So that hasn't really changed much. I think what we can surmise really from this is that the accommodation and food services industry is certainly a sector to watch. It's seen more resignations than any other part of the economy. And in contrast to that, it's also been the sector that's added 2 million more roles in 2021 and created 1 out of 3 net jobs. So hiring still remains higher than resignations, suggesting that some people might simply be finding better opportunities. So we could ask ourselves, is this more of a job switching revolution? We do know, though, that there have been record numbers of people leaving their jobs. In the US, more people have quit in 2021 than the same period pre-pandemic. So it may be attributed to low income workers switching jobs to make more money in industries that are raising wages to grab talent and employees as fast as possible. And ultimately, I think what we can say is the pandemic itself isn't causing people to resign, but it has changed the attitudes to how people want to work. And moving on then to the Great Migration, the theory behind the Great Migration is that people will be able to relocate to locations with cheaper costs of living. Again, we see anecdotal evidence for this theory. The statistics don't bear out just yet, but as an example, in my organisation, I am seeing requests from employees to work from abroad more than ever before, up 400% actually based on 2019. So we can ask ourselves a couple of questions around this, and the primary one being, with remote working becoming the norm and the level of expectation that there is now, are we going to see key talent request to work abroad more frequently? And if we don't allow that or don't plan for that, are we going to lose that talent? And working abroad is a growing trend, and the US is likely in the early stages of a great talent migration, and companies need to prepare themselves to tackle the logistics around that. And just moving on then again to the employee perspective, it would be premature to suggest that a 9-to-5 office environment is dead. However, employees are reevaluating for whom they work, how they work, and where they work. They're no longer interested in achieving a work-life balance and flexibility. They're now demanding it. And in contrast to that, then moving on to employers, the tables have turned in the talent pool from tech giants to local restaurants. Finding and retaining top talent is becoming increasingly difficult. And when we look at retention, on average, it costs the company 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace him or her. So couple that with increasing demand and low supply, retention strategies and cost-effective hiring practices are an area where a business can achieve a competitive advantage, more so now than ever. Employees can work for multinationals regardless of where they are in the world, and subsequently employers do need to have a greater footprint on where they can hire from. And as remote working, flexibility and working from abroad begin to form permanent work practices, employers need to be willing to offer this or risk losing that talent to an employer who will. And just to conclude then, The pandemic has caused many people to rethink their jobs and their careers, from minimum wage workers to highly skilled, highly compensated workers. And for many low wage earners, the decision to look for a new role or leave the workforce may mostly come down to money. At the other end of that spectrum, high earners and skilled workers want more flexibility. And in majority of cases, employers are recognizing this and they're happy to give it. And while some may refer to the current job environment as the Great Resignation, especially at the high end of the market, it's more appropriate, I think, to call this period the Great Talent Migration. And companies just need to prepare for a globalized workforce as it is likely to become more commonplace. So that's me done. So thanks for listening. I'd now like to just hand the mic back to Dave, who will do a Q&A with Matt.
Thanks so much, Michelle. That was extremely interesting and a great perspective. So I think Michelle really touched on some key challenges in the international payroll space, and how the war for talent overall is increasingly becoming more expensive and time consuming. You know, she touched on some of the new challenges that I think we're probably all experiencing in this post-COVID world. Stuff like the ability, you know, the demand for remote working. I in particular can relate to that as I'm going out and hiring folks. That's becoming an increasingly important part of discussions as folks are looking to move organizations. So I think we're all seeing a huge amount of new challenges, and it's becoming an important part of hiring but retaining and attracting international talent across the globe. If you marry those new challenges with some of the kind of traditional challenges that we all know and see from processing payments across the globe, you know, the need to adhere to local country regulations, local tax code, the inefficiency and costs that comes with making traditional cross-border payments across the correspondent banking network. When you marry those traditional pain points with you know, some of the new ones that Michelle touched on in her update, you know, it means international payroll is becoming increasingly a very complex space. What I'd like to do now is have a bit of a Q&A with Matt. As I mentioned earlier, Matt is the payments director for Amedis. So I'd like to maybe throw some questions your way, Matthew, and get your perspective.
Sounds good.
So firstly, Matt, in case folks on the WebEx today aren't aware of Amedis, give me a quick overview of the company.
Yeah, so we were founded in 2016. Really started much earlier within the TaxBack group. So had a background in global mobility, tax, and built a payroll software though in 2016. Kind of kicked off our, now we process payroll in over 150 countries. We're over 500 people across over 12 countries now in terms of where we are. I'm in Austin, Texas, but yeah, Amedis, we work with large multinational companies and we offer them a consolidated global payroll service. So we do all their payroll in all their countries, and we do it compliantly and touchless in many instances.
Very good. Excellent. And Michelle went through some of the kind of new challenges that she sees in the space. Does that ring true in terms of what you're hearing from your clients today?
Yeah, certainly. Like, I mean, the mobility piece, the remote work, great migration, just the need for our customers, you know, being flexible for their employees, and whether that's their employees moving from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Also, just the traditional challenges that were mentioned there about payments arriving on time, accurate payroll, all that stuff doesn't go away. There's just these new challenges on top of them that can complicate things further. Let's say someone moves from you know, Spain to France, and and also they're moving bank accounts. So you have to include the challenges from a tax perspective, but also from a payment perspective, right? So
Right.
we're just seeing more of it. COVID's really sped it up in terms of that move and shift to more remote work.
Great. And talk me through the kind of different models for that are out there for global payroll.
Yeah, so there's really four models, from what we see. So there's the in-house model where the company is just managing and actually processing payroll, doing the calculations in-house. They have large teams. Maybe that makes sense for a really high number of employees in just a few countries. Then we have a local provider model. So that's really where a company will use, let's say they're in 30 countries, and likely they'll have 25 different payroll vendors. So dealing with a lot of vendors, usually it comes from M&A. You'll see, so maybe they've acquired companies over the years, and with that acquired the payroll vendor that's doing the payroll. So they find themselves with a lot of different local providers. And then the third piece would be the aggregator model. We're seeing more and more these software companies offering sort of visibility into the local provider. So what that means is the company would still contract with the local providers, but they're using an aggregator software to have some analytics, get some visibility into payroll. And then there's the Amidas effect, is really the unified, globally consolidated payroll. So we take ownership. We are the payroll provider in each country, and we also are that software piece that sits on top. So really, we consolidate all the local providers and provide one service, one payroll solution.
Okay, great. And the bigger clients of yours, Matt, did they generally adopt one model, or is it a combination of one or many of those four?
Yeah, I'd say the shift is really to that global unified model. We work with some of the largest companies in the world. There's still a case, maybe sometimes it would make sense to keep maybe one or two payrolls with high employee headcounts. Maybe those stay in-house. Or even maybe through an HCM provider like a tier 1 HCM. But for the rest of the world, really what we see is a shift away from all the, in this world, there's so many different companies are looking to standardize processes, centralize, and be able to report costs and understand those costs. So if you have, say, 25 different providers, it just creates a lot of, it's like comparing bank accounts and bank account fees. It's a lot of apples to oranges. So when you have that one provider, really you can measure things. You have, one set of security to focus on. There's compliance is owned by one provider. So yeah, certainly we're seeing a shift to that unified payroll process.
Okay, very good. And the local access to local payments rail, like a provider like we offer you, a TransferMate, versus in lieu of the kind of correspondent banking network. Talk to me about the benefits that provides to your clients.
Yeah, I mean, TransferMate, we love TransferMate, not just because they're our sister company. We went out into the market and actually looked at many different firms. Really, TransferMate allows our customers, really provides, I'd say, four key differentiators that TransferMate provides or has. One is that they're globally compliant. So Amidas doesn't touch money we're not licensed to. So we rely and depend on the compliance footprint and the regulatory footprint of TransferMate, which is a key differentiator because you guys are licensed in so many different countries. The second piece is really the access, like you mentioned, to those local payment rails. You also have local bank accounts. So giving our customers the flexibility to fund in local currency, fund from a central account, to hold funds on account, and then to pay through those local payment networks, avoiding the cross-border wire intermediary banks, and the charges that come with it. A lot of times people don't necessarily realize that when you send a wire through your bank, that it goes through several banks, and even if you control the charges of those correspondent banks, the receiving bank will still charge a fee, and that's not acceptable in payroll. The employee shouldn't have to incur a fee every time they get paid, and TransferMate solves for that by giving us access to those local in-country payment rails, which is key. The third piece is the technology. So our platform is fully integrated with TransferMate. So our customer, their payroll team will approve the payroll, and that actually initiates the payments. So there's no manual touch points in the back end, which really speeds up the payroll calendar on the front end, gives our customers, they can provide their payroll inputs a bit later in the process than versus some of our competitors. And that's because of the technology. And then there's also the piece around the webhooks that actually plug into our platform, give customer an idea of when the funds have arrived, whether it's them funding TransferMate or whether it's TransferMate funding the employees. They know where the money is. And then the fourth piece is service. When things go wrong in payments, like they do in payroll, and the feedback from our customers is that their banks aren't as concerned when things go wrong. The banks have multiple customers. With TransferMate, not that they don't have many customers as well, but just that level of service on top of the technology really makes a difference. And they understand the payroll piece, like they understand how important that is. And I think that's a key differentiator and has been really helpful for us as we've scaled.
Very good. I've taken up a lot of your time, Matt, but one last question from me. Given you're living and breathing international payments and payroll, give me a couple of trends that we should all be aware of that you see in the coming years. Yeah,
sure. I see two, like you said. I'll give you a couple. One is earned wage access. So in the US, we get paid usually bi-weekly or twice a month, but most people around the world get paid monthly. And with earned wage access, I think we're just seeing such a demand for it. And in the next 5 years, it's only going to grow. And integrating that, allowing the employee to draw down on their earned wages more than every 30 days or every month. I think we're seeing a trend towards that being, expected. I think in the next 5 years, certainly between the HR platforms, the payroll companies like Amitis, and the payment providers, working hand in hand and with partnerships on the way. I think you're going to see a lot of more earned wage access coming to fruition. The other piece is just ties into that a little bit with the digital wallet space. So, with these remote workers moving from country to country, really having access to their cash at their fingertips via a digital wallet, e-wallet, such as Revolut or PayPal, two examples of many. More and more people are wanting to get their cash into their digital wallet so that they can utilize the other financial services tied into those apps that really give them the flexibility that they need as workers, as remote workers especially.
Very good. Very interesting perspective, Matt. While you were answering those questions, I kind of jotted down 3 very high-level takeaways that might be interesting for to kind of summarize, I think, the key points. The first one you alluded to, and kind of Michelle did as well earlier, is just the fact that doing payroll in-house is expensive and can be quite time consuming. Not a big surprise, but I think it is worth noting. Secondly, really elaborating on Michelle's part, I think we all have to get used to the fact that agile and mobile workers will increasingly become the norm, and we all have to adapt to that. As I mentioned in my own recruitment discussions, I think agility around working environments is becoming as important as comp in certain cases. So very important from a recruitment perspective. And then lastly, you went through the 4 different payroll models. If international expansion into new markets is key, a part of your client's overall strategy, a unified payroll solution feels like it's the best solution for that. Anything else to add, Matt? I hope I didn't butcher your answers, but just some kind of high level takeaways.
No, definitely. I'm impressed with the formatting and beautiful slide here. Such short
Very
time.
good. I'm multitasking.
There you go.
Very good. So Matt and Michelle alluded to a lot of the challenges that we're seeing in the wider payroll space. I think Matt also did a really good job of talking about the solutions, right? That on a high level, there are different payroll models that your clients can adopt. I think my perspective on this is there's no right or wrong model, right? It's really dependent on what your clients are looking to do from an overall strategic perspective. If they're looking to maintain primarily focus on domestic and have maybe 1 or 2 ventures internationally, local payroll or payroll aggregator model may be a better fit. If they are looking to expand internationally anyway aggressively in the medium to short to medium or long term, the global unified payroll solution would appear to be a better fit. So as we look at the different payroll models that are out there, I think it's key to understand that not every payroll platform has the same functionality. And so I just want to leave you all with kind of 4 areas that I would deem as particularly critical when clients are understanding what type of model they feel like they should go with. And the first one is just the breadth of regulatory licenses and network overall. For me, it's critical that clients select a provider who has a similar licensing framework that marries with the strategic growth areas of the client. So if they're looking to expand into EMEA or into North America, they pick a provider who supports access to low-cost rails and low-cost bank accounts within that specific country or region. Secondly, flexible funding options are key, be it pull options like reverse wire direct debit or push or pre-fund. I think it's vital to find a provider that offers a wide range of options across different currencies and different schemes. And that level of flexibility is key. And again, very important to marry that with where the client is looking to operate, either currently or in the future. Thirdly is just visibility into the cost of payments. As you are moving money across borders, we mentioned it earlier, that can become a very costly undertaking, as we all know. So having the ability to understand real time what that cost is, and relating that back to the overall cost of payroll is really important and something that should be a key point of consideration. And then lastly, just the ability to embed the payroll side with the the payment side with the processing side of payroll is key. And what I mean by that is, from a client user experience, the processing and the payroll services that are required are married with the payment side across one platform and one user experience. I think having that within one unified platform, as we mentioned earlier, is really, really important. So we're running out of time here, but I did want to finish and just on a slide that kind of shows some of the benefits that we would feel come from a global unified payroll solution. I'm not going to run through them one by one, but overall, you know, we feel it does reduce in a reduction in time, a reduction in cost, and just overall efficiency and compliance benefits. So with that, I'm going to bring the WebEx to a close. I'd like to thank my panel of experts, Michelle and Matt, for their excellent insights. Thank you very much to both of you. I'd like to thank everyone for joining the WebEx today. If there are any further information points or discussions that you would like to take forward on the back of this, please contact us at transformate.com. We also have a very detailed payroll guide on the website that I would point you all to if you're looking for more information. I'd like to thank you all for your time today and hopefully see you soon. Thank you very much.